Welcome to this week. China is back for now. This episode is all about China because China has made a lot of headlines. A lot of headlines. First one is China-Russia deal. China G visited Russian President Vladimir Putin recently. You may have heard about it. President Putin announced that Russia will use Chinese yuan as the new trade currency of choice between Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Russia-China cooperation will accelerate, leveraging China's industrial power and Russia's natural resources to the benefit of both parties. Russia is the largest natural gas supplier to China. China has started plugging the industrial gaps that were created by the Western sanctions on Russia. China's Xi said he wants to link Belt and Road Initiative to Eurasian Economic Union. China's Xi he wants a trade deal connect Eurasian Economic Union and maybe eventually even Europe. At the end, Putin personally escorted Xi to his limo. Here's what they said to each other. Xi: now there are changes that haven't happened in 100 years. When we are together, we drive these changes. Putin: I agree. Xi: take care, dear friend. Putin: have a safe trip. If it wasn't clear before, we are in the multipolar world now. Honduras joins list of countries cutting ties with Taiwan. Honduras recently cut off diplomatic ties with Taiwan. Honduran President Xiomara Castro severed ties with Taiwan in favor of China in a bid for more investment and jobs from the Asian giant. Taiwan was told to vacate its embassy in Honduras within 30 days. In his remarks, Deputy Foreign Minister Antonio Garcia said, 30 days is more than enough time to pack up and leave, adding that officials aim for an orderly, friendly exit. Taiwan Foreign excuse me. Taiwan Foreign Ministry spokesman Jeff Liu said 30 days was an international norm and that they would comment further later. Since 2013, many countries have done what Honduras did recently, that is, cutting diplomatic ties with Taiwan and recognize China. Burkina Faso 2018, Dominican Republic 2018, El Salvador 2018, Gambia 2013, Kiribati 2019, Panama 2017, Solomon Islands 2019. Of course, Chinese are celebrating this. Here's the title of Global Times editorial. Honduras not to be the last to sever diplomatic ties with Taiwan Island. Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang said, we inform sternly the Taiwan authorities that engaging in separatist activities for Taiwan independence is against the will and interests of the Chinese nation and against the trend of history and is doomed to a dead end. Now, Taiwan has only 13 formal allies. Belize, Eswatini, Guatemala, Haiti, Holy See, Vatican City, Marshall Islands, Nauru, Palau, Paraguay, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and Tuvalu. Unofficially, however, about 60 states, 3 territories and 1 supranational union, EU, have relations with Taiwan. US has defense agreements with Taiwan. Next, Tim Cook visits China. Tim Cook visited China recently. He met Wang Wentao, China's commerce minister. They discussed Apple's development in China and the stabilization of industry supply chain, according to a statement by the ministry. Apple and China grew together And so, this has been a symbolic kind of relationship, said Cook on a panel at the China Development Forum, according to a report by the Financial Times. However, he did not address tensions between US and China, but said China's innovation is developing rapidly. China will unswervingly promote high-level opening up, steadily promote rules, regulations, management, standards and other institutional opening up, according to a statement from China's ministry. Basically, he's trying to appear neutral to protect Apple's business in China. Apple doesn't want to lose their Chinese revenue, not to mention the losses that will come from supply chain disruptions if their factories were suddenly closed. China wants to go back to time before 2020. We all kind of do. But China does especially. When they were attracting most investments, they want their economy to start growing again. Here's another big one. Saudi Arabia and China. After China brokered a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, Saudi Arabia is moving closer to China. Saudi Arabia is also close to restoring diplomacy with Syrian government, which was targeted by USA, Saudi Arabia and others. Saudi Arabia's state-owned oil giant Saudi Aramco will invest billions of dollars in China's petrochemicals industry. Saudi Arabia is now a dialogue partner in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization (SCO) after it approved a memorandum. Here's a Wikipedia introduction to SCO. Wikipedia is not credible source. It's mostly edited and locked up. A lot of times the Wikipedia pages are locked up and a lot of times they are edited by the Western establishment, let's just say. Here's the Wikipedia introduction to SCO. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization (SCO) is a Eurasian political, economic, international security and defense organization. It is the world's largest regional organization in terms of geographic scope and population, covering approximately 60% of the area of Eurasia, 40% of the world population, and more than 30% of the global GDP. The SCO is the successor to Shanghai 5, formed in 1996 between the People's Republic of China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia and Tajikistan. On 15 June 2001, leaders of these nations and Uzbekistan met in Shanghai to announce a new organization with deeper political and economic cooperation. The SCO Charter was signed on 7 July 2002 and entered into force on 19 September 2003. Its membership has since expanded to 8 states, with India and Pakistan joining on 9 June 2017 officially. Several countries are engaged as observers or dialogue partners. Iran also signed documents for membership and is expected to become a member this year. Washington, as a response to these developments, said Chinese attempts to exert influence around the world will not change US policy towards the Middle East. SCO countries will hold a joint counter-terrorism exercise in Russia's Chelyabinsk region in August this year. Now, what is the response of United States? Pretty terrible, and de-dollarization is happening. I think many countries find, rightly so, the Chinese diplomacy and focus on trading far more attractive than America's lecturing on freedom, democracy and human rights. American foreign policy after the collapse of the USSR has been, let's just say, unrealistic at best. All the wars, all the sanctions push countries away from American superpower towards rising power or diplomatic or more neutral rising power of China, more neutral than America. Not exactly neutral, completely neutral, but just more neutral than America. The world is tired of Washington meddling in other countries' affairs, keeping bigger countries like Russia, China, and India from establishing their own spheres of influence like US did via Ukraine, Taiwan, and Pakistan respectively, just to avoid competition. Yes, the free market capitalists want to avoid competition. The so-called free market capitalists want to avoid competition. The world is tired of Washington keeping the Arab world, Africa, and Latin America destabilized to avoid them coming together to create bigger decentralized country like United States or a supranational security and economic treaty like EU and NATO. The world is tired of all that. We are in the multipolar world now. The era of American hegemony is over for now. But it seems that Washington is still stuck in the past. The de-dollarization is happening. So, if you don't know, the currencies of the world are backed by US dollar. They were backed by US dollar. Before, they were backed by gold. And then US dollar came in and became world's reserve currency during the Second World War. I think it was called Bretton Woods. It was Bretton Woods Conference or Bretton Woods Agreement. It happened in 1944 or 45, where American dollar became the reserve currency of the world. Now, after the Bretton Woods, the US dollar was backed by gold. So other countries were backed by US dollar and US dollar was backed by gold. But in 1971, US dollar went off the gold standard. Now it's backed by nothing, almost nothing. What US has done is they have made some kind of treaty or agreement with Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries so that they would trade their oil in US dollar, and in exchange Washington would guarantee their security. Well, and de-dollarization is world moving away from US dollar as a reserve currency. Why? Like I said, sanctions, wars, divide, all this evolution of divide and conquer, of the good old divide and conquer British policy. American foreign policy is kind of an evolution of that American geopolitical strategy. So de-dollarization is happening. Here are a few examples. China and India will trade oil for rupees. Russia endorsed yuan for trading. Brazil and Argentina are interested in developing a common currency. Brazil and China will use their own currencies directly for trade, ditching dollar as intermediary. India will use rupees for trading with many countries, at least 15 plus for now. Kenyan leader told his people to ditch US dollar. And recently, I think Malaysia too has decided to ditch the dollar, and they have received money from China in form of investment, something like 29 or 30 billion dollars or something. So what does this mean for dollar? Well, all this dollar which is used by other countries will eventually end back up in US, because there's nowhere else it can go. It will go nowhere else. Right? What will do this? What will de-dollarization do to American economy? Well, it will cause even more inflation, or possibly hyperinflation. And so what is hyperinflation? Basically, Weimar Republic. You may have heard of it. just printed a lot of money and just went bankrupt. Other examples include Hungary, uh, Zimbabwe, and more recently Venezuela. Yes, American currency dollar may end up just like Venezuelan currency bolivar, where people were carrying stacks, literal stacks of dollars to pay just to get basic necessities like food and anything else. Just that is what hyperinflation is, and it will probably happen in US if other countries start ditching their dollars for other currencies and other commodities like gold or some other commodities, gold, silver, other commodities. Well, another thing is US cannot impose its will on other countries by weaponizing the dollar, aka sanctions. BRICS, which is commodities based, which may possibly expand to include other countries with high natural resources like Argentina, Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, will have huge power over pricing of commodities. Gold and other commodity prices will go up in US dollar. Of course, right now, there's no other open liquid currency, transparent currency like USD. So, Chinese have been accused multiple times of manipulating the yuan. There's no other currency on earth right now that is as open, as accessible, as transparent as US dollar. And that's one of the major carrots for other countries that US is dangling to make sure they use dollars, because everything is just easier. So for example, Swift banking system is there. All the oil and other commodities, oil, natural gas, are traded in US dollar, or they have been traded with US dollar in the last few decades. So, like I said, there is no other open, liquid, transparent currency like USD. But that doesn't mean there won't be any other, ever. Of course, gold prices can be increased 5 to 10 times its current price to bring back the gold standard. So, if you compare gold price to the US dollar, it has flatlined gold price. So, many suspect that US or Wall Street in particular is artificially suppressing the price of gold to protect the dollar. If that is true, I don't know how long they can do it, but eventually gold prices will go up. If people can decide price of gold, of course, government cannot just decide price of stuff. That's price control. It leads to shortages, like what happened in Soviet Union. So you cannot just decide the price of something. But if all the countries come together and decide the price of gold and raise the price of gold in their own currencies, that will force the price of gold in United States dollar to go up as well. US, which is already rich in natural resources, will have some influence over commodity prices even after the world de-dollarizes. As long as United States exists, it will have some influence over commodity prices. The world, especially the Western world, will have to go back from financial economy to resources and production based economy of our grandparents and our great grandparents and their grandparents. As Elon Musk once said, if you're not making stuff, there's no stuff. Simple. He's also backed MBA degrees, managers, and finance guys like Warren Buffett. higher commodity prices will mean that people cannot use and throw products. They'll have to use products that last long. And you cannot use something like use and throw plastics, for example. They have to use products which are meant to last longer. Just like boomer generation and before, where durability used to be a sign of quality. Right now it's not, unfortunately, for many items. Of course, long term, China will lose too. China's biggest problem is demographics. They have too many old people compared to young people. They would have suffered the demographic decline eventually. They would have suffered demographic decline eventually. They would have suffered demographic decline eventually with the level of industrialization they have. But by adding or adopting one child policy just made the whole demographic decline process far worse than it should have been. Just terrible idea. China is or Chinese government usually thinks long term, but one child policy did not think long term at all. Unless they force their population to have more than 2 children and citizens comply, there is no way out of this for China. Even if they force the population to have more than 2 children and their citizens comply, there will be some pressure in short term because there will be too many old people and young adults will be less than old people, and the young adults will have more kids. So the current working population will face a huge strain if the Communist Party of China decides to force people to have kids. So just a big population of old people, really small population of adults, working population, and just a huge population of kids. That's the best possible scenario. The worst possible scenario is their population will halve by 2050, 60, something like that, and by that time, they'll one of their major advantages will be gone. Of course, the whole world population is about to decline rapidly unless Nigeria and other African countries catch up. What are the other countries that are facing demographic decline? US, Europe, European Union countries, Russia, and East Asian countries like Japan, South Korea, etc. So, I've already discussed demographics. But because of this demographics, China will lose eventually. But right now, China is a major security threat for India and a major economic threat to the West for at least 30 years. And all the decline that West is going through with their economy and their culture. The question is, can the West avoid collapsing before China? Can India be ready when Chinese try to expand? Can China avoid demographic collapse? Or have a peaceful transition into lower population? Or are they going to have violent revolutions, social unrest, etc.? We don't know. The future looks bright for India, but from other countries, but for other countries, uh, other major countries, major powers, you shouldn't have much hope. Maybe US survives if US can build up their economy immediately after whole de-dollarization is complete and American empire collapses. They can still attract enough. If they can still attract enough people, enough young working people in America from all over the world, maybe they can avoid it. If same goes for Europe, if Europe can attract young working people from Asia and Africa after the collapse of Euro and maybe even collapse of European Union, if they can attract that population, maybe they will have a chance. China and Russia, probably not. So China is back for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys soon.